Hello, dear viewers. We are a lot of time late, but we are hoping for the best because today, due to unscheduled load shedding, we have and we had to wait, I guess, exactly 1 hour.
Hello,
Welcome, dear Michelle.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm really very sorry about today's late start. Do you remember the first schedule was 10 p.m.? But just because of this, electricity, we are suffering, different other COVID-19 and this and that. But besides that, this electricity is also one big issue for us right now. And the problem is unscheduled breakdown of electricity. So,
Oh,
well, I do apologize for the, you know, a big delay that you have been keep waiting.
yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna plug this in and see if I can hear a little bit better.
Please, we are live. You may try, please.
Yeah, just because hear you a little bit more and I don't have you hooked up to my speaker. So can you still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, that's even better.
Okay, yeah.
There we go. There we are. Viewers, very sorry again for being late, but as majority of you are following us from different countries of uh, Asia, so you can understand, what kind of problems we have been facing apart from COVID-19. It was very interesting that I received many messages that the COVID-19 is not that much successful in Pakistan just because of one thing, that is because we are already facing many other things. So, so well, still hope for the best, and this is what the life is. We have to, try and we have to go on with it. We
Yes.
have very special guest with us today, Miss Michelle how do we pronounce it?
It's
McCauley.
Macaulay. Yeah.
Natalie, right? And she is a Native American musician as well as cultural. She promotes the cultural dance, and today we are going to listen from her a lot. And the word I use, Native American, that is very, very, dear to my heart. When you go to the historical perspective, you know, even I guess that before the discovery of USA, the official discovery, because there is a lot of history behind it. Some people say that the real discoverer were the Arabs who reached there and they discovered, but they were not that much learned, educated, so they could tell the rest of the world that there is some place called America. And then there was a Columbus who takes the credit that and again, I'm not going into the history because I know very well that there is a large part of Native Americans who do not favor because they call it, a lot of things are there that how did he reach there and what, barbarian acts by the Columbus were there. But still, one part of, US citizen, they consider him, a hero, that he was the man who discovered well. Leave it the part. We are coming to our topic. Some other time we would like to listen from Michelle on this topic as well. So welcome, Michelle, to our show.
Thank you for having me.
We would like to start with the introduction. Your introduction, where were you born? And then how did you do your early study, your higher studies?
Okay, well, I am a member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe in Nevada. So Native American tribes in the United States, the government only recognizes about 576 of the original tribes that are here. There's more, but if our tribal government, or if our federal government was to recognize more Native nations, they'd have to give up more land for those nations. So United States isn't fully conquered, as the history books would say, like Columbus and everything. So that's really important because this is my tribal flag. This is where I'm from. This is the lake with the pyramid. And then these are the tribal chiefs. This flag was probably produced somewhere in the like 1930s, 1925. So we got this image. So we had to have a picture for our tribe. So what that means is I grew up on my tribal reservation, which is land that my people, ancestors, in about the late 1800s, there was a Pyramid Lake War. My ancestors fought the Europeans or whoever was coming this way for the gold rush, because we're right next to California. So my tribal nation, the chiefs decided they fought off the colonizers at that time. So we still own it. We still have this lake. So we have a kind of a win-win story, I guess you could say, for the Native Americans. We fought to keep our own homeland. So I'm not, my tribe and the descendants that I descend from, we were not moved or forced out of our area. And this is late 1800s, so early 1900s. We still live there, and so this is where the lake is about half an hour away from my home. But I grew up here on my reservation, so I went to a school. I mean, that's what we call them. The government calls it reservations, where Native Americans live, and only we're allowed to live here. So I went to school, elementary school, on my reservation from the age of 4, which is preschool, all the way until 8th grade, which is when I was 12. So I saw Native American teachers, my own tribal teachers. I got to see them as teachers. We did have some non-Native people, but ultimately, a lot of our non-Native teachers at that time that I grew up, they let some of our elders from our community come in and teach us the dances. So this, well, I'm going to move my camera a little bit so you could see that dress is called a buckskin dress, and that was made by my great grandmother, Flora McLeod Forrest Smith. She actually, that's made out of deer hide. And when I was younger, 8 years old, she actually had made a little girl's dress. And so we had a dance group at the school on a reservation run by our tribal members. So I had a dress handed down to me that my great grandmother had made. And so I was part of this dance group that was our culture and some of our language. But what's really important about that is that, huh? Oh, as I say, all my grandparents, I'm 38 years old, so all my grandparents were forced to go to a boarding school. They all spoke Washoe, Shoshone, Paiute. They spoke their tribal languages, yet I've never heard them really speak their tribal languages because they went to these boarding schools that the United States government forced all Native Americans to go to be civilized or whatever, to teach them English. So none of my grandparents taught us the language because they learned in these schools by the US government that English is what we needed to know. So I did not, I know words from Washoe. So my mom's Washoe and Shoshone. So I know words from that, like Gume Heji, that's like, how are you? And then my Paiute side, where I grew up, like how Maniwan. These languages have no relation to each other. But at the school on Pyramid Lake Paiute Reservation, some of the teachers, they were allowed to come back in and teach us our language because those are the things that were lost. The United States government forced many tribes around the United States into these schools to take our languages and our dances and everything away. But we fought, we got a reservation. And so the time I'm growing up, 1981 is when the last boarding school in my state closed. That's when I was born, and that's when it closed. So I was able to go to a school where I was not beaten if I was to speak my language. We were not punished for doing our dances. So that's how I am able to know my dances. But it wasn't until I was older that I found out that what my grandparents had been through.
Wow, that's really amazing stuff.
Yeah, so that's what was I went On on a reservation, on a Native American reservation, what you find is whoever that tribal nation is, we are the only people allowed to live there. So my neighbors are all Native American. They're all Paiute, members of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Non-tribal members, you can have, like my mom, she's a Washoe tribal member. Her tribe is like 2 hours away from ours. She can't live here unless she's married to somebody or she has kids with somebody. And so tribal citizenship, if anybody comes here, say an American, just a regular American decides to come onto my reservation, they now abide by tribal law, not United States federal law. So it's like we are, some people describe it as we're the third world countries within the United States. My reservation, though, is 30 minutes from a city, the city of Reno, Nevada. But there's plenty of reservations that don't have running water. There's plenty of reservations that are very far from cities, but ours, we are very lucky to be this close to the city. So that's where I grew up, mostly on the reservation, mostly seeing Native people. But the history that was taught to us in the schools when we were younger, all I knew was like white people took our land. When I was young, when I was real little, I'm like, why are people saying this? And then I went to high school off the reservation, and that was a big shock to me. That's when I started going to school with more white people, more black people, and that was my outside getting used to society when I was 14. And then I was a musician. I played the clarinet at that time, and music, I really liked reading music, and I had a music teacher who allowed me to get scholarships to go to music camps, and he encouraged me to try out for honor bands, and so I did. He was non-native. He was a white man, and he had his doctorate in music, but he came out there and he taught us native kids, and he taught us very well. So that's when I got time to choose to go to high school. I had three choices. I could go to high school on my reservation, and I didn't want to do that. And then I could go into a very small town, about 5 miles away. I could go to high school there, and I just didn't want to do that either. And so I chose to go into the city. I chose to go to the school in the city. And also my mom, who did, I don't remember if she had her high school diploma at this time. She just told us we're going there anyway. My mom was like, you're going to the school. And so that's when I continued music, and I wasn't doing my culture as much, I guess you could say. I was just doing classical music, playing the clarinet, and I got into a lot of groups. And then that paved the way for a full ride scholarship to the university right after high school. So in high school, I only did classical music. I took private lessons. I won solo competitions. I was like the first chair clarinet player in the state of Nevada. I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And I was in the Reno Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. I mean, I just practiced my instrument so well, and I went there. And then so by the time it was time for me to figure out what's next after high school, the local university, who I had known those people in the music department, they offered me a lot of scholarship money. So I went to college for free, and I conducted a marching band my senior year of high school. And some of my classmates asked me if I could come back as the teacher the next year. They're like, our teacher's leaving. Why don't you come back? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I need education for that. So I enrolled in the university, and I chose music education because somebody else outside me kind of just said, hey, why don't you come back and be our teacher? And I think they already kind of thought of me as their teacher because I conducted them as a student leader. So that's how I ended up going to the university. And I just made those transitions all with music. And then I entered the university. I had an okay time, and this is where I'm from. I'm Native American. I grew up on the reservation. We grew up with different values. My community, we value women. We value their opinions. Um, we just kind of look at each other as equals. And this is where I ran into things in the university system that were foreign to me, whereas women's opinions, especially a Native American woman's opinion, according to the white people or colonizers, a little bit looked down upon. And this is where I had comments coming at me, such as maybe this thing would have been better if you weren't Native American, or maybe. So I had a hard time, and I had to figure out what is going on because I grew up around natives and I'm Native American. We value life. We value other cultures. We don't expect other cultures to be like us, but that's not what I found at the university. People expected me to be, I don't know, more accommodating, but not with the culture that I have. And so I ended up leaving the university and traveling the world and dancing and sharing my culture. So the first place I ever traveled outside the country was to Israel
Ah,
for 30 days. And that was my first trip for 30 days outside the country, and then I got to see a bigger world. But I noticed that the people outside of this country know our history. Like even you said, you know some of the history of what happened to us, and so we are treated very differently outside of the United States and Canada. I'll say outside of Canada too, because Canada somewhat still treats us the same or worse than in the United States. But
I just like to interrupt and add up here that I wrote a one article a few years back, and the title was Columbus, the Plunderer and the Killer. So a lot of my, the American friends, they got angry. They had the big comments I would like to share with you. And
yeah,
I have the references with the researchers who are giving the references that how, he invaded and how he did and what he did to the locals, what he did to the natives of that time.
the Tainos and Tainos on the land, they're still alive. So this idea that he eradicated all of them even is false because he did not. There are descendants of them, and I have a friend of mine. She's Canadian native, I guess you could say, and Taino. Her mom's too. Her mom is Taino, and so yeah, Columbus is in I think in some states now they're abolishing Columbus Day, but yeah, that is just
That's right.
erroneous. Everything he did was so harsh. It was just barbaric, pretty much, like horrible.
That's right. That's well, we are coming to the softer side of your Native American. I would like to. You have already gone in quite depth and talked about what the Native Americanism is, but I want our viewers to listen even in little more. The clear picture because mostly the word is used Americans, but when I had a conversation with you I felt very happy the word used Native American. So how do you feel about it? What would you like to tell about our viewers that, what kind of strong affiliation you feel when you use this word?
So globally, outside the United States, and even today, I will say Native American, but when I start traveling internationally to the world, I don't have a choice in what goes on my passport. So when I say Native American to say the first people of the United States, which most people recognize, but ultimately I'm from here. I'm Pyramid Lake. I represent the Nama, which is what we call ourselves, which translated is just the people. And you find a lot of indigenous, and I could go use the term indigenous because when I've met Maori, when I've met Hawaiians, when I meet people from the lands, the original lands, and usually they're the oppressed people because colonizers have come in. When I meet other people, I think that term indigenous, we all connect on, we can tell each other who we are. So I will say I'm Paiute, Washoe, Shoshone, and Quinault. Because if the United States ever is not the United States anymore, I'm still Nama. I'm still Pyramid Lake Paiute. This is still me. So um, the term Native American is a hard one because going up into Canada, which is right above, there's a border there, and that border cut off families, that cut off tribal nations, and so they can't say they're Native American. So sometimes we say First Nations or just I like the term Indigenous. Um, but Native American is recognized in the United States, and it's more recognized than if I say I'm Paiute. We only have about 2,000 members of our tribe, and that's it. There's no more of us. You cannot go to any other country. You can't do that. So ultimately, I'm a Paiute. a Paiute woman. I'm Washoe, Shoshone, Paiute, and Quinault, but I'm registered here. But outside the United States, most people don't know that there's 576 federally recognized tribes and more. So say if I meet another Native American and I know they're Native American, our conversations are different. So I will say, I'm from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe of Nevada, and then they'll try to draw a connection. Oh, I've been to such and such tribe, Walker River Paiute tribe of Nevada. Are you near there? And I'll say, yes, I am near there. And then they'll say, well, I'm from the Cree Nation and I'm from Montana, the nation in Montana, or I'm Crow. So I guess at the heart of it, Native Americans, the broad term of what might be more recognized throughout the world. But I'm a Paiute woman.
Right. It's really very interesting, Michelle, to know about your tribe, your language and all. See, don't you see that even you can see that the stronger dominance of colonizers, you use the word Americans, they have, brought the native cultures and languages in danger. So the language and culture are endangered. How do you see it?
So I had to go back and learn my own history. I had to learn why do I speak English? First of all, that when I was 18, 19, I was like, why am I like this? Why can't I, what happened? And then I found out that the United States government on purpose attacked natives. They just opened these boarding schools and they let an army general open boarding schools, and pretty much they were run by different religious sectors all over the country. And they were they were meant to quote unquote civilize us, kill the Indian and save the man. So the United States government, as an edict through all these schools, decided that we were not civilized. They needed to kill the Indian in us um, and save the man. And a lot of abuse happened in those schools. We still have people who are alive who live through that. And there are some of those people who live through those schools who are ashamed, who have become ashamed of the language, who have become, and they're still living. Um, and for myself, I was like, okay, I'm not being beaten for speaking my language. People can, they say racism, you see a lot of racism coming out of the United States. That's still there. There's policies in place that are in place. So for me, as a Native American woman, say if I want to share with a white person about my culture and I want to educate them, if they decide that they are feeling threatened outside of this, say in an educational system, they can then just go to the manager or somebody and just say, she was threatening me. And because all these stereotypes about natives, we're less than, we're barbaric, we're savage, we're mean. All these stereotypes that have been out there about us worldwide through the Westerns, those affect how we're able to save our languages. We have to have allies. We have to have we have to have people who see the value in our culture without the stereotypes and who are willing to learn. And so we are finding some of those people. And so for myself, a good example, I guess, of this would be I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained musician, but I also know my dances and I also know my songs, luckily. And I was invited to sing a song at the Reno Philharmonic young people's concerts that they put on, that they send like 2,000 to 3,000 elementary school students to. But the conductor of that group thought it was important to, we're like, the state I live in is Nevada. They're like, we're doing a Nevada concert. It would be great to have somebody who can represent this culture that has been missing. So we have some people starting to see and pull us in. And so when I get those opportunities, I'm like, yes, I will go. I'm used to the concert hall. I'm not intimidated by it. However, when I go into the concert hall, um, it, if I have people in there who don't know me, I get questioned like, why are you here? What are you doing? Are you supposed to be back here? Are you working here? And so I mean, like, people are helping. And we also, Native American people, just in general, to save our languages, we live online. the United States is never going to give us a television station. So there's Facebook pages, there's YouTube videos now of people creating content for their languages online. And we have gatherings called powwows. They're not right now because of COVID. However, at those gatherings, whatever communities they happen in, like I travel extensively to Washington, Arizona, when there's no COVID, and the people who introduce themselves within their language, many of us in my age group, about 38, many of us have to stand up and just encourage everybody to utilize their language, no matter how they sound. Because there are some older people, generations, who will put others down because they don't sound right or they're saying it. But my language has like 14 dialects, and we're only in Nevada. There's 14 different dialects. And so who am I to criticize somebody if they're not saying it right? But we do have some people right now who criticize when we're trying to bring back our languages. And then it's hard with the language because we speak English in all the educational institutions. So until we decide, my tribe and some tribal nations may have a include, like, just you go there and that's the only language spoken. But in my tribe of fluent speakers, out of 2,000, I think we have maybe 12, and they're older and they're passing away, or we just don't have enough people to serve that need, I guess I can say. And so we have to encourage.
That's really amazing journey. But one sad part, I feel that that many of you could not learn the language, the tribal language from the elderly people. As what you are saying, that only 12 people are left. That is, something to my heart. I'm feeling that we will lose, the languages, especially the indigenous languages you're talking about.
Yeah, and while my grandparents are alive, so my grandparents that I lived with, my dad's parents, my grandmother was Paiute and Quinault, which is a Washington tribe, but she knows Paiute. She knew how to speak it. And then my grandfather also knew Paiute. However, when I was living with them in college, my grandfather was in his 80s and my grandmother was in her 70s. There's a big or 10-year age difference. And so I'd ask my grandma, I'm like, Grandma, how do you say, how are you in Paiute? And then because she was in the boarding school, and many of our elders who went to the boarding schools, if they don't want to answer your questions, they're not answering your questions and they're not giving you an answer. I mean, like, they're not giving you a reason either. So it depended on the day. And sometimes she might say, how you, and then sometimes I would ask her and she just said, I don't like how I sound. I don't like how I sound speaking this. I don't. So then I would ask my grandfather, and my grandpa, my dad's dad, and he was older, into his 80s, and he said he would answer me sometimes 3 days later because he couldn't remember right away. And another classmate of mine at the same time, his grandmother, he said he would ask her the same thing, and sometimes she would answer him and sometimes not. And some of our elders do not have the traumatic situations like some that my grandparents went through, but my grandmother told me some stories of things she witnessed when she was younger, like just accidents happening to people, losing her dad, losing her uncle in just the most weird ways, like getting hit by a train. She saw the aftermath, things like that. And then she would go quiet. So these people too, who may carry the language, have all this trauma inflicted on them, so they may not want to share. And then some people don't want to teach it or carry it on. And then we do have some people in their 40s who grew up with a grandparent who did not go. So, I mean, but those people, there's only like one or two of them, and there's only so much they can do. So myself, as a music educator, as a music teacher, when I taught on my reservation, I taught elementary school music, I think 2 years only, before I was kind of like chased out by the colonizer mentality when they don't respect who we are. So what I would do is I was like, I better learn songs, because I didn't think of myself as a singer. I'm a clarinet player. I'm an instrumentalist. But anyways, I learned songs, and then I started singing these songs to my students. And then I would revisit the songs the 2 years that I was there with them. And I made up hand signs to some of them. So the kinetic, the thing, the kids, it would stick with them. So I did that as long as I could until I could no longer work on my own reservation because we had outsiders coming in who did not value our culture. And so for me, singing songs and going to powwows. These are Native American gatherings, and you could look up powwows, any powwows on YouTube, and you could kind of get an idea of what they are. But when I enter hand drum contests, it's customary we introduce ourselves in our language. So I had to learn how to introduce myself in my language when I say "Hauma namashal mina ni a nakuyui dekada." So nakuyui dekada is like the fish that's found in this lake. It's only found in this lake. It's called kuiwi or kuiwi. So kuiwi dakota is kuiwi eaters. Essentially, that's how we would differentiate ourselves to other tribes by what we eat. So those ways, I would also try to impart that to the kids so that at least they could have that.
Wow, it's really very interesting, and especially when going back, just trying to imagine that time of, tribes were there and they were living a very happy life, very healthy life. When you go through the history, we imagine everything happening around. And now, as you said, that you do not need to wait for the media to come to you. You have the YouTube, you have the social media. As we met and we talked about it, and I invited you, same way the world is connected, very differently. We are highly privileged, I would say, in these times. Michelle, I would like to know that, how the person like you who went to city for high school studies, English is just like your first language because you are not that much aware with your indigenous language, with your own you can say ancestors language. What inclined you towards, same again, your own music, your that tribal music, tribal dance, tribal culture? What is the inclination behind actually?
Well, when I grew up on the reservation, there were certain words that we would use, and some of these words I did not know they were Paiute words until I grew up. So it's almost like we used English and then we inserted Paiute words. And how I found that out was when I went to high school off the reservation, and I was trying to talk to some of my friends there, and I think it was just something in a movie. I was like, "Oh, look! Oh my God, there's a Nina in this movie," and I expected them. That word means like something scary or something, but they're like, "What?" And I was like, "You know, Nuna." And so I had to have a lot of lived experiences with non-native people. Um, and then the other part after that, I was like, okay, so these words are not everybody knows. Um, and when people would ask me, "Oh, you're native? Tell me all the cuss words." And I'm like, "Cuss words?" Interesting fact: we do not have profanity built into our languages. So I learned that in college. But what I actually the biggest move I think was, as a young girl, I danced with my buckskin dress, and I always knew I had songs and I had a culture and I had a dance. I knew that, and no one made me feel ashamed of that. But when I got older, and in college, what we call college, the higher education, 18, 19, 20, 21, I would meet people who would know I was Native American, and then they would say, "Oh, do you know what an atlatl is?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "You're native, right, though? You're native, aren't you?" And I say, yeah. I was like, "But I've never heard of that." And then they say, "Well, you're not really native then. You can't speak your language." And then I would say, "Well, do you know about the boarding schools?" And then the conversation would stop. They didn't want to hear it, and I'm like, "Okay, what is going on here?" So I started feeling very uncomfortable in higher education around non-native people. I'm saying non-Native American, Indigenous people. I felt more comfortable around Black people, around Mexican people, but also they weren't in high numbers at the time when I went to college. So I started becoming, I started feeling I'm very different. I said, something here. Every college classroom I go into, these music classes I go into, I am not the same. And so I went back to, I started attending cultural events. I started attending powwows because I felt like a piece of me was not being validated by the culture I was in. And I also started going to powwows more. And then my neighbor across, well, he's my neighbor across the street now, or was, invited me to start singing backup for a powwow drum group called Southern Style. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I felt very comforted being, we have like a big drum. And so it's called the father drum, and we have drum groups, and they kind of make up new songs for our powwows. So I started attending those, and they would have practices like at 8 at night, 7 at night. I would leave my dorm and I'd be like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of the city. I got to get away from this colonizer. So I felt a calling back to my roots, and I felt a calling back to start dancing, and those were filling in the pieces for me, about who I really am, when I have all these outside forces, these outside colonizers who do believe Columbus did this, who do believe Americans won the war, who do believe all this. I started going to other elders and stuff and filling in the pieces for who I am. And then once I did that, and I studied more about our language, I took our first language class. We got a writing system for our language in 2004. If that kind of gives you also an idea of how to save the language. Personally, the Paiute tribe, we finally had an elder who picked a writing system that fit our language. So when I look at the numbers, the Samutyu, the Wahatyu, the Pahityu, when I look at it on paper, I'm like, that's our language. 2004. And when I learned, spending time with my relative who also taught the class, he told us that because he grew up with his grandma, we never said good morning to each other. We never said, hi, how are you? How's it? And when he said that, because our language, when I say how, this is what our language has accommodated English. It's the English, how are you? Like how, you is, he said we never talk like that, but because our society is shaped that way, we had to make equivalents in our language for today. But when he told me that we never did that, I was like, that fits my personality. I'd rather show up to somebody and just start talking. I'd rather skip all the hi, how are you? Who cares? Sometimes who cares? But when I learned that, I was like, what else is valuable in my culture that I'm not getting? And so from there, again, I withdrew out of college for a time, and I traveled not only to Israel, I traveled to Ireland, Northern Ireland at that. I traveled to different reserves. They call them reserves in Canada, not reservations. And I started listening to elder stories, listening to their journeys, listening to just Native Indigenous perspectives. And Native Indigenous perspectives from around the world are always, they're caring, they're full circle, and they're inclusive of humanity, just everybody as a whole. They don't exclude. And so at that time in college, I started limiting myself with those college influences, and I'm like, I just got to do this to get out of here. I just got to do this to get my degree, and then I could do what I want. So that's kind of what spurred it on, was I wasn't getting along with some of my classmates, and people were saying I was confrontational, or I'd bring up points that they couldn't even think of, because we don't live in Native Americans. Some of us are very capitalistic with the colonizing, but some of us are not. Our culture can't be bought. We can't be bought. You can't. Land is more valuable than money. Like those values. I started connecting with those because what I found in higher education wasn't sitting well with me.
Wow, Michelle, that is, I guess we need, a few more sessions to listen your experiences and, how did you observe the ground realities, especially because
That's
when we,
I will say this. There is a lot of pain and sadness that I have, and even now. So revisiting the histories of any people, any Indigenous people in the world, any people who are living in a nation where they're being told they're uncivilized, or you're too simple, usually they're not. Like you said, before colonization, before contact, when I found out how we were, we didn't have jails. Like, why did we not have jails? Why did Native American people not have that? How did we even survive? But we had values. We still have them. And doing all of that, it is very sad. And yes, we still have drug problems, alcohol problems in the United States and Canada, but it's not because we chose that lifestyle. It's what the colonizers did to us and kind of forced that on us, and then put them in the boarding schools and tried to take away their identity. And those were coping mechanisms, unhealthy, that were introduced to us. And so I think changing that narrative would greatly help us. But there's a lot there's a lot of hurt that comes along with being an Indigenous person. But I mean, like, we still have our dances, and so I think that's what we find comfort in. I still have a culture, I still have a language, I still have these things, and no colonizer, no person can ever tell me that I'm simple, that our people, they can't tell me that because of what I know now.
Very true, very true. And somehow, I feel that there is evolutionary process of thinking as well. If you go back, like, 30 to 40 years, same kind of mindset was there, as you use the term, that civilized and uncivilized. Some of the people used to think, if you just go to the British history, you see, 50 to 60 years back, the way they were clothing, the way they were dressing, the way even the upper class of English used to speak French. Now you can check it out that, inferiority complex, and you can see that how they used to think. There were no ownership for their own language. They had the same kind of class, that aristocrats and the upper class, elite class, who used to think that they had to copy those nations who were, superior to them. And same in America, and when you come to Asia, you find the same kind of reality. But I believe that this generation is a lot moderate than before. They are trying to give the space. They are trying to, welcome the different flavors. When we talk about, like, you are wearing a very beautiful kind of necklace, and I can see a lot of things behind you as well. That is something beauty. Actually, we cannot take it, we cannot give any strict kind of parameters to the civilization, that, oh, yes, you can talk about civilization, like the the thing you have just used, that there were no prisons, there were no jails. So we have to think about why there were no prisons. It means there were no criminals. It means there was no crime. People were living with harmony. They were at peace. There was no need of, jails, or there was no need of prison. This shows actually this civilization. People were loving, people were caring, they were living together in the form of group. They were not I don't want to go far again, but they were not the invaders. They were
Mm-hmm.
not going to, do something like in other countries. They were not going to, loot the properties of others, or do the killings in other lands, other places. Well, coming to, one this thing that, yes, I was about to say that you are welcome to visit Pakistan once the COVID-19 is over, and be our guests, and we'll take you around. And especially, you would love the, indigenous people and variety of cultures. You would, fall in love with it, because I can tell you some of the cultures we have. If you visit the province, we have right now four provinces, and then we have some of the area which is right now still the disputed one, which is part of Kashmir and all. And we are there fighting on the United Nations for its own freedom as well. But the parts, let me tell you about Sindh, one of the provinces there. And if you will just try to, Google about it, Sindh, Sindh, I will send you the links. You would say, oh my God, it has its own beauty. You would not understand the language, but the music, and, the local dances, you would be inspired. You go for, we have another province called KPK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and once you listen their music, same again, Even I cannot understand fully the language, but the music and their dances will, they will mesmerize you. Same is with the Punjab, and then we have Balochistan. My God, it is actually, somehow really very beautiful. And this is something I'm just, formally, informally inviting you. Whenever you plan, just come over and we'll take you everywhere. I'm there to be your host to take you everywhere and show you, and we'll make the documentaries as well. So this is beauty. This is beauty. What inspired me to talk to you, to listen you, and ask you the question. The thing is about your, that indigenous culture, indigenous music, and this all. Well, I hope you will accept my, invitation and would love to be here once these things are over.
Oh yeah, when I'm also a Zumba instructor. So the workout Zumba, which is all around the world. It's only been banned, I think, in like Saudi Arabia. But the main reason why I love that is because that company goes directly to it wants the people who know the dances from the cultures, and they give them a platform, and so we get to hear modern music, but if we ever get somebody from that country or that region, they also know the traditional music, so like they'll let us listen to see the dances and maybe how they've evolved, or they'll say this is really traditional. And that's also what I do on the other side. Like I teach those classes and I love to learn other cultures' dances, but I pay attention exactly to how they move their hands, how they move their feet. And if I can do it, most of the time I can, but I love that. I just really love that stuff. Love it.
Very nice. Michelle, we have a viewer here and a friend of mine, Mr. Mia Furkan Mahmood. He says that forced conversions, forced removals, willful eradication of native values, language, and culture from the Plymouth Rock to Wounded Knee, the way Native Americans were treated. As we were earlier discussing,
Yeah, I think the values have not they were not able to change our values. And that's what I noticed today. And because we can speak English, so my Indigenous relatives in Canada, my Indigenous relatives in Florida, the Seminole tribe, any tribe that I go to, we can speak to each other without interpreters now with English. And the one thing that I think that has been very common is that our values through everything have not changed. We are not for sale. Land is not for sale. People are not meant to be treated as things or less than. And that's one thing, I guess, one good thing I could say about us being able to speak English is that our values, no matter what tribe we are, those values in different people are still there as part of our tribal nations. And that speaks to I guess, the endurance, the prayers, the just how quickly Native people, Indigenous people, how quickly we can change. Like the minute COVID started, like literally the weekend we went on lockdown here in the United States, somebody started a social distance powwow group. So since we couldn't do our social gatherings, someone immediately put that up. And then the next week, I think the social quarantine dance specials went up. Since we can't go and compete with each other, they're like, okay, here's going to be this day, this day, this. It like happened immediately. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I think that's a huge testament to our values and our ability that we've been able to exist this long and still keep our values. And because we just have people being innovative. Like right now, I'm talking to you, taking those opportunities and just using them and connecting with people. Like we just started doing that almost immediately. And there are some natives who don't like it, but for the most part, those of us who know our culture and we just miss dancing, it like happened right away. So if you go to YouTube and look up anything like powwows, POWWOW, just powwow dancing, you'll find thousands of videos of what we do today. And what I'm wearing, is evolved. So this is modern day. This is not representative of my Paiute, right? This is what I do now. It's all flashy rhinestones. Whatever country makes it or buys it, if we could get our hands on it and it looks good, this is what we make. but I wanted to show, here's an example of beadwork that is not shiny, simple beads. This is more representative of my Paiute. And this, I don't know when this was made. There's shells on here, but take a look at the beadwork. That we do a lot of geometric designs. This was done on a loom. And then you see the modern. I like modern, I like flair, I like flash. And so this is what I would wear today in a powwow. But when I'm representing my tribe, usually I don't even like to wear makeup. It like all goes away.
Right, right. That's very, really interesting. And especially, I would like to share with you the same kind of things you can find over here in Pakistan as well, because we have also a lot of tribals, and so many of them still they carry on. Even you find the women fully loaded with such kind of jewelry, and you get, you feel like, oh my God, how do they carry all this? It's really very heavy. Especially the tribal parts, the rural parts where the tribes are, growing in the same way as their ancestors.
Well, yeah, if anyone goes to my Facebook page, like I have a little bit on. Usually when we do this, my hair's back. I got stuff in my hair and we're fully clothed, even whether it's 100 degrees outside or 40 degrees outside. If you see, there's versions of what I wear, but if you look up powwow videos or anything like that online, you'll see what the men wear. And head to toe, our outfits, you just see the creativity and how it's evolved. But yeah, I wonder sometimes, like, how do those people wear all that? Even myself, I wear beadwork on my they're called leggings, and they're fully beaded, so they add about 3 pounds maybe to what I'm wearing, but I'll still dance with it. And I have a daughter too, by the way. I'm a mother, and so I'm teaching my daughter the powwow dances, and I'm fixing her. She has her own beadwork like this. If you can imagine that, she has her own, and it is super cute to see our young ones who they don't know about the boarding schools yet because I mean, like we have a certain age where we'll teach them, but our next generation, like you said, that are growing up. My daughter's proud to be who she is. She loves the native stuff. She has no hesitation about it, and because of what I've chosen to do is like talk to people like you and other cultural people. That's what's in her life. That's all she sees. My mom had a hard life growing up, so we did not travel much and we did not see much. But my parents are still together and they're very supportive. But yeah, our next generations, the native kids or indigenous kids or any other kids, they're like proud of who they are. Like it's so young, and I'm like, man, I wish I was like that when I was younger.
Right, wonderful. Michelle, we have one question here. Let's check it out. Says that can you please comment on the relationship between music and culture? It's really very interesting. Relationship between music and culture and how the music of 21st century is affecting culture globally.
Well, with what you find, especially with my tribe or the native tribes, some of the songs that we have were not, is it just the drum beats and the way they're set up had no influence from classical music or pop music. When you get into, so I'm Paiute, we have a drum beat called circle dance drum beat here, formerly known as the ghost dance, if you heard about that worldwide. But now it's called the circle dance. And those songs talk about stuff of the land here, like the pine nuts. That's not influenced by, that's not influenced globally. However, there's an artist, a Native American hip hop artist, who is blending our culture, our values with rap music and producing. His name is Supaman, Supaman. But when you watch his videos, you feel the essence and the beauty of indigenous people. When you listen to his raps, it's our experience, and he wears his full Native American powwow fancy dance outfit, and he can explain to you every piece of his outfit. He it is very touching. Those videos right now are on YouTube if you look him up, Superman. But then we also have our round dance songs that come from mostly Canadian northern border that has influenced the rest of the United States and the rest of Native Americans and how we do what we call round dance. And in those songs, you will hear English lyrics. So they'll do some chanting, way oh hey, or something like that, way oh hey, and then they'll do a breakdown of the English part, and then you can hear what they're singing about. And sometimes they sing about heartbreak. Somebody got thrown out of their house, but if there's a woman, like woman man stuff, or you'll hear her mom singing to her daughter. A lot of them are about love and breakups. So I think that part, the English part, has kind of come on there. And then the latest, we have somebody called DJ Shub, DJ, and then SHUBB. He's infused electronic dance beats. Oh, and a tribe called Red. They've taken some drum group dance beats and put them to electronic beats and produced them somewhat in a studio. And I actually use a couple of those in my Zumba classes. But we still have, so we know that there's that, the modern, and then we have the full on traditional. So I don't think the full-on traditional is ever leaving. Kids are watching TikTok. They're doing all the dances. So we do have some native rappers. We do have some new age, like with native flutes and guitars or things like that. But ultimately, when you talk to those people, they can also point you back to their tradition, the origin of the tradition. So it's like if you see the modern thing, you know that they already know their culture, and then they've just gone further and are being innovative with it.
Wow, really, a lot of work is happening. It's just like as you're sharing. So people are trying to promote, trying to work, and trying to, bring the things in in link with the modern ways, so more people can be knowing about the relationship between culture and music. Uh, the second part, which was asked by Mr. Junaid Tariq, it was that how the music of 21st century is affecting culture globally. I feel that if we talk about the music of 21st century, it is not only affecting culture, but I guess it is also having big effects on the that cultural music as well. What do you think? That indigenous music.
I think especially like I think in South America, you see these like people rapping in Peruvian or doing those things, and they're indigenous people, and they usually start rapping about saving the forest, saving this. I think that globally has a message that can be positive. 21st century globally. Um, if you stream online, you have access to all kinds of music. And one thing I'm always teaching my middle school students and my elementary students, especially right now, I teach a lot of Mexican students who are from Mexico. And I know that they're just listening to like the rap artists like Cardi B, but I also teach mariachi. I'm beginning to teach mariachi, which is a cultural form of music from Mexico. And I have to instill these, you got to know this too. Like this is who somewhat you are. This is somewhat of your identity, where these songs come from. In addition to maybe you take that, the basic, the tradition, you take that and you make it 21st century in your own way so you could reach your own generation. Those are things that I personally think should be together, not just being modern all the time, but knowing that history before you start developing something into the 21st century. Those are my personal thoughts. And classical music, because I'm in music education, seems to only want to stay like reading music, and if you can read music and play an instrument, you're at the highest level. And any other music that people don't read is beneath that. So I think 21st century musicians, whether you read music or not, just know the histories of the musics that you are dealing with and try not to steal from other cultures without it would give credit where it's due. Like I went here and I saw these people, and they offered me the ability to maybe use this song or this beat, not just completely stealing and taking and putting it in a song. There's also capitalism, or companies trying to come in, but I'd say know the traditions and then continue it.
Right, amazing. Before we go further, Michelle, would you like to play something for
Oh,
us, for
oh
our
yeah.
viewers?
Yeah, I have a mic on, so I'm not sure how well you're going to hear this. So this actually is a hand drum. I bought this from a music company. just to use and to travel with, because if anything happens to this drum, I could buy another one. So we do have drums that are made from different animal hides within the United States. Some of are made from cowhide, some are made from moose hide, whatever is around. But this one, it just says Remo. So we call this a hand drum. Um, and then this right here is a drumstick that I had made. You cannot really go into any store and buy these. So a lot of things, and especially like my jewelry, you cannot go buy these things in a store. You got to know people. But this is called a hand drumstick. It's sewn, hand sewn together. Everything, the leather on it's hand sewn together. And I use it with this drum. This did not come with this drum, but this is what we use. So the song I'm going to sing for you is representative of the Great Basin. We call these circle dance songs. This song is going to be in 2 languages. It's going to be in Shoshone and Paiute, which are similar. And I guess this is a little bit of the influence. Any Native American person who serves in any force, the Marines, the Army, anything like our National Guard or anything like that, this song is for our veterans. We hold our veterans, no matter what war they fought in, as high esteem, and no matter what culture they're from. So this is for those people who have, and especially right now during COVID, if you have lost somebody, it's a song that talks about the sorrow that you feel in losing those people. And so this is kind of to honor that grieving process. And this is also a song that I learned, and I'm hoping that it's going to catch on more in this area. So I learned it from, I think his Popeye McLeod was the guy who originally wrote it. He's no longer alive, but his widow is, and she heard me sing this and she said thank you for singing it exactly how he sang it. So I'm going to sing it 4 times. Hand drum, this is what our song is, or our songs sound like, our circle dance songs. Daming pia pa na pasakara na hombe naya woyandun hina ovidova yurit nugin daming navidun hombe pasado and z and kandoy hambuyak nayak woyandun hina ovidova yurit nugin daming navidun hombe daming bia pa na pasakara na hombe naya woyandun hina ovidova yurit nugin daming navidun hombe pasado and z and kandoy hambuyak nayak woyandun hina ovidova yurit nugin daming navidun hombe. Hayoin.
Wow, wow, it's really amazing. Very nice.
So that drum beat, you see a lot of different hand drums if you go online. Also, you could put round dance songs or you could put hand drum songs into YouTube, and you will see our artists, they make from every different area, they make different versions of those. But that song again is from this area, the Paiute, Shoshone, Washoe people.
Wow, that's great. Really very, very interesting. Michelle would like to know about music as identity and culture as identity.
So that song is a perfect example of when we visit other people. Like if I was to go to Pakistan, to your nation, and meet some of the tribal nations, people who identify to me on that level, this is our language, here's our song and dance, this is exactly something, a song like that I would be doing in return. Not my favorite hit song off the radio, or not my favorite Zumba song, like this is my jab, I love Daddy Yankee, or something like that. This is not, it's not a matter of taste of whether I like it or not. This is the songs of where I'm from. So I would say this is circle dance. This represents a Great Basin area of where I'm from. And then also the beadwork that I wear, like right now I'm being flashy. Along with the music, we have a dance. And along with the dance, we have outfits we wear. So if I was solely just representing my nation, I'd probably wear something more like this, along with the song, because visually, I think a lot of our artifacts here are very important. And so for my identity, it was really important for me to start learning those songs. So I did not sing those songs when I was younger than, I think I learned my first Shoshone flag song when I was 25, when I ran for Miss Indian World. So I started putting another element to my identity, and that was getting our songs back. And so now I have a library, maybe I have 5, 6, 7. I don't know how many songs I know. It's not infinite, but that is a song that I would share as who I am and where I come from. And when I hear that song, if I hear it outside of this area, I'm going to go find that person. Like if it's at another cultural gathering or something, I will go find that person and say, hey, I'm from here. I recognize that you sang that song. I'm a member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Where are you from? So that's really, really important. And these days, for our younger generation of our next upcoming generation, these are songs that they need to know that represent who they are. It's cool that you do TikTok. It's great that you like other songs, but ultimately, this is who we are. This is our dance style, and it tells where we're from.
Wow, great. I guess I have asked you too many questions. We just take few more questions before wind up. That how do you see the cultural benefits of dance? See, there are many benefits of dance. We say, oh, it keeps us healthy, workout and all. Well, what about the, cultural benefits we can have?
I think usually what I know about in my community in the fall time, we had the pine nut harvest. And I don't know if we'll be able to have this again, but we get together and we just dance to songs like that. Like our ancestors used to do that all night. So, but we're there to honor the pine nut, the food source that helps us live. It creates community, I guess you say, and it creates traditions, and it's a way that we connect together without having to speak. And our dance to this is super simple. It's not flashy at all. It's just you're just there. And usually we have prayers, we somebody prays in the language, and then we dance. That's just a given any indigenous thing. So in and also connecting back with who you really are, with your roots, you feel that sense of, I think, security, that you're finding yourself again. These are our people. This is what we did in this space and this land for this time. But also, again, like I said, our songs talk about the one I sang talked about veterans. The ones we dance together honor our pine nut, and hopefully our harvest will come back. Um, the dancing provides the reason why are you doing this? And usually people who are there watching, um, if they can't stand up anymore, we often say we dance for those who cannot. Bringing joy to people is another, I guess, form of this. And then we also have songs that we consider to be healing. So we dance our prayers sometimes rather than say them. And I'm definitely a more dance my prayers rather than sit there and say them and say a prayer. So I think also with the dancing comes the reasons why you're doing it, who is there watching, um, and in this certain style, this is our style, like this is ours, other people can join it. And there's so many different other ways to connect with cultures. That's what I like about it, is like, this is our style, what's your style? And then we could like engage with each other that way if we're well, and we could walk. And then it provides like a connection, like a friendship, you know, a bigger connection to the world. And it just brings everybody together. I think that's the ultimate, the biggest. Whether or not we speak the language, same language, we can see movement and mimic it, whether or not we understand the language. So yeah, I think it's even way bigger than it's connecting.
Wow, really great, really great. And it means that, somehow this way our, those cultural dances are also alive. And the same thing I would like to hear, share with you, that same kind of cultures are here in Pakistan as well. That when there is a time of, harvesting, there are some kind of activities, and they are coming. Many of them they are not being, actively observed right now, but still I see some of the areas, some of the tribal people they follow it. and they follow it as a very strong kind of deeds from the ancestors, and really it's beautiful, very interesting. And then there are different other occasions where there are cultural dances and cultural music used, and definitely it needs to be continuously happening so we can keep them alive. Michelle, how do you see the role of United Nations in keeping the indigenous cultures and the languages, music alive? Do you feel around you some contribution by the United Nations where they are doing something to keep these alive?
Not not necessarily, because there's 576 different tribal nations that technically can enter into other agreements with other countries without the United States federal government. That occasionally has been done. You see some of our tribes, they could make a arrangement with another country regardless of what that thing says because we have sovereignty. But I've never had anybody from the United Nations come. I mean, I know that they're welcoming. They've heard some of our younger activists about climate change and about languages, but whoever the representative is who's spoken to the United Nations, I don't know what they have given so far as to help us. I know they're willing to listen, but there's in the United States only, there's 576 federally recognized tribes. That means that's 576 nations to help somehow. And then we're also talking 576 different languages. I have never felt an effect directly of how the United Nations has directly impacted any tribe here. There's 27 or 28 in the state of Nevada alone in my state. So I'm Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. There's Walker River Paiute tribe, Fallon Shoshone Paiute tribe, Tomoke Shoshone tribe, Owyhee McDermott tribe, Washoe tribe of California, Nevada. We have 28, and I don't know necessarily of any impact they've actually had. And yeah, I don't know.
Right, right, Michelle. Really very interesting and really great to know a lot of things about the about Payot tribe, and more things we would love to know from you in the coming days as well. And we can have a complete session on these beautiful things you people make, and we can also make a
Yes.
separate program on your cultural dance where we can see the people dancing, we can see what kind of, or I would request you to keep in mind whenever you have such kind of any program, you can let me know a little in advance even, so we can go live, we can check it out, and we can show their dances to our viewers that how do they do it, so this
Uh,
can be done as well.
yeah, if right now because we're on COVID, there's a webs or just I say you go to YouTube and you could just put powwows 2019. Like I'll put that in a little bit in the chat. If you put in powwows 2019 in YouTube, you'll just see endless videos of people who submit. And there's a YouTube channel called Powwow Times, and Powwow Times is the guy who put that channel together. He's a men's fancy dancer. He does front flips. He's the only one who does this, but he traveled extensively and is kind of like a self-made entrepreneur kind of guy out of our culture. But he's submitting videos of he went to so many powwows that he's still submitting videos every day in this quarantine. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I saw he has so much. And just make sure you put powwow times, and you'll see men's categories, kids categories, golden age. Our elders dance as long as they can up until 80s, 90s. You'll see the different age groups broken down. I'm women's fancy shawl category or women's jingle. My daughter's junior girls, and you'll get a very good sense of what this looks like. But you could get caught up for hours doing that. Just a warning, fair warning for people who go look up powwow times on YouTube. To see what our culture has become. And then you could look up hand drum contests and just hear singers, young and old. like I said, we live on social media. That's the only place where you're going to find us. But since everyone, I think, do you guys have YouTube in your country? Are you able to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
as long as you have access to YouTube, and most of the time our music does not get censored. So that's I have a YouTube channel, Michelle McCauley, so you can see some of my dancing as well. But yeah, just right now,
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
check out YouTube.
Amazing, amazing. And let me share with you that right now also we are going live on YouTube channel as well. I'll send
Oh,
you the link. I'll send you the link as well. But you're right that sometime we have actually, due to that electricity problem, we had to go live on the Facebook as well. But the Facebook have any policy that if you're 10 minutes late, they delete your live. So we lose
oh
them, but
wow.
it's okay. We can share through this YouTube link on all our pages. I'm
Yes.
really thankful to Michelle. At the end, I would like to listen a message for the youth of the world from you, especially in the context of indigenous music, uh, dance, and even culture, and generally about as well that because I take it music and culture, these things as the message of peace for the world. How do you take it, and what message would you like to share with the world?
I think that right now, if you're a young person, youth, and you have somebody in your household or you live with somebody, you have relatives who know the songs of whatever culture you are, you're around them all the time, to take your headphones off. If you have AirPods or anything, put your device down and listen to them and learn that, because when you turn 18, 19, 20, 21, no matter what it is that you go do out in the world, people are going to ask you about who you are, and you want to be able to show them and tell them your music, your songs, your dances are the number one thing that are going to keep your identity, and they're going to be for a lifetime. So in addition to the music you like, if you are around cultural people, learn from them now. And I say that as someone who, I learned my cultural dances when I was 8 and 9 by some people at my school, and I never complained, but I did not know that later on in life that that was such a huge part of knowing who I was. Like, I participated in it and I thought it was boring at the time. I thought this is so boring. But later on, it's like, no, that is who I am. That is what I do. And that those songs, then I went back and learned them. So if you are with somebody right now, they do the clothes for your culture, they know the songs, they have the beats, they have the instruments. Take every opportunity to learn from them, and if they tell you you can't do something before dinner, you got to learn this song, because I know that's how some people learn. Just listen and take it in, because later on in your life, it's going to matter. It's going to matter.
Excellent. So nice of you. Dear viewers, today we had a very, very special guest and a wonderful person, Michelle McCauley, with us. And she is a cultural musician, she promotes cultural dance. She works on the culture, relationship between the indigenous culture and music. And we came to know very specially, let me tell you, I have gone through a lot of historical background, American history, as well, especially I'm very much you can say having strong feelings for the indigenous Americans, because there are a lot of history, they are having very, very strong history. uh, and today it was the first chance to be with you, with the uh, you can the first Native American interviewing. I have a lot of
Oh,
friends, wonderful American friends, beautiful knowing them every time new things, but this is the first chance, and I was very excited, our viewers were very excited, uh, and we would love that in the future we should know more things, like we can dig in depth and we can know more things and we can share with the world as well. And I just repeat my invitation again, whenever it is conveniently possible, just feel like your second home, Pakistan. And we would love that you should come over and we should take you around, meet our tribal the people, and show you how rich they are with the tribal music and tribal dances and tribal culture. Viewers, you can watch us after this broadcast ends as well, because I know that a lot of people have different timings in their countries, everybody having different time. management during this COVID-19. You can watch it. You can watch Michelle McCauley as well. She has the YouTube channel. You can subscribe our YouTube channel. Stay connected. Looking forward to see you again in tomorrow's broadcast. Michelle, thank you very much again. Please stay. I'm just going to end broadcast, then we speak. Thank
Okay.
you very much to you all.
You're welcome. Pijayu. And sa